actually from the Iowa College Access Network, also called ICANN. We are a nonprofit organization whose basic mission is to help families across the state of Iowa with college planning and understanding financial aid. We do lots of appointments in our offices. I'll show you a slide in a minute, but basically I am a Northwest Iowa person, so I have an office at Western Iowa Tech in Sioux City, and currently I'm there about 4 days a week right now. And then I have an office at Northwestern College in Orange City, and currently I'm there 1 day a week. That could change, different times of the year, but that's kind of how we're doing it right now. And we've got offices all across the state, and people make appointments with us to have us do their FAFSAs for them, to apply for financial aid, sometimes just to talk about different ways of paying for college. Sometimes they come in just to learn kind of how to go about applying for scholarships or to explore colleges. The little white sheet gives you kind of an idea of what our services are, but we also take a lot of phone calls. There's an 877 number where whoever happens to be next on the list, it rings in their office, and we answer lots of phone calls that way. So we just provide a lot of different services, and we've actually been around for 20 years. We're celebrating our 20th anniversary this year, which 20 years ago they weren't in Western Iowa. They started in Central Iowa, then kind of moved to the Cedar Rapids area, and then came out. I just started working for ICANN in June, but before that, I spent 16 years as a music teacher in public schools, and then I spent 18 years as a high school counselor. And my last 17 of those were at Maple Valley Anthenoto, which is a little ways from here. It's south of Sioux City, so you may or may not have, I've heard of Sibno-Cheaton, you may or may not have heard of Maple Valley Anthenoto. So I was out in Cedar Rapids. I started working for ICANN in Cedar Rapids in June, and then this job opened up right away after I moved. So I ended up moving back here a couple weeks ago. 2 of my grown sons live around the Sioux City area, so it was my move back. So I've been all over the place in the last 8 months, and I would not recommend moving twice in 8 months. It's not very fun. But I'm really glad you came. And hopefully you got all the materials. Those are the basic materials that come from ICANN, but there's several other things laying there, and I will reference a few of those. So that booklet is really handy, and I would say keep that someplace where you can find it, because a lot of things we talk about are in there. There are some page references up in the corner, if that's helpful to you. But otherwise, there's just a lot of good information. That's a book I used a lot as a counselor, just to look up things for kids, and I used it as a parent, and I use it as an ICANN person now too. I have 3 grown sons that have all been through college. The last one's graduating this May, so sometimes I have too much information. But so my office in Orange City is on the Northwestern College campus. It's wrong on my card. I'm actually in the Student Center, so if you ever want an appointment in Orange City, I believe it's correct on the website now, but it's not in that same building that it says on my card. But you can see that we've got regions all over the state, and there's an office at least one office in all those regions. And then my other office is at Western Iowa Tech in Sioux City, which I realize is a little ways for you guys. So basically, we're here to talk about financial aid, the financial aid process, some basics. It's a lot of information. If you haven't been through this before, it may make your head spin a little bit. But the main idea is just to give you a lot of information. Then you've got some handouts that you can refer back to. And then you've always got your counselor you can talk to. You can call us. There are a lot of different resources out there to help you as you go through this. Are all of you either juniors or parents of juniors? Yes? Okay. That's what it's geared toward, but sometimes a few other people stop in, and that's all right. So first we're going to talk about what is financial aid. Financial aid is money help for college, and there are 2 basic types of financial aid. The first type is called gift aid. When you think about gift aid, you think that if someone gives you a gift, it's yours to keep, right? You don't have to give it back. So gift aid would be things like grants and scholarships. So when you see anything labeled grant and scholarship, that's probably everybody's favorite type of financial aid because you don't have to pay it back. Those can be based on financial need of your family, or they can be based on what we call merits, which would be your talents and abilities, academics, music, sports, cheerleading, dance, radio broadcasting, whatever it is. So those are the types of gift aid, or sometimes I call it free money. A couple of grants you may have heard of. So grants, again, you don't pay back. The federal Pell Grant. That's something that if you have a low enough income, or your income and your number of people in your family might qualify you for this. It is actually, because it's a federal grant, it can be good at any college in the country. It doesn't matter where you go to school if you qualify for that grant. The Iowa Tuition Grant would be another one you may have heard of, because the word Iowa is in it. It's Iowa Financial Aid, so it's only for Iowa schools, and it's specifically for private schools in Iowa, such as Dordt, Northwestern, Briarcliff, Morningside, Simpson, Central. There's a whole bunch of really good private schools in Iowa. But it's only for those, and again, it's need-based as well. Then the other type of aid is what we call self-help aid, and that's where your student loans come in. and also Work Study, which you may or may not have heard of, but Work Study is a federal program, again, based on financial need, and basically, if you qualify for that, then the college would award a job to the student, and they are really good about working around the student's schedule. They probably get paid minimum wage, but often they're very easy jobs. Sometimes they're just sitting someplace to sign people into a certain building, and they're not very busy, so often on a work study job, you might even be able to do homework, things like that. So I always say, when they ask you about financial aid and they ask you about work study, I would say yes, you're interested in it, because if you do qualify for it, and they offer it to you and you don't need it, you can always turn it down. But if you say no, then they probably can't even offer it to you. So I would keep that open. So gift aid and self-help aid are the two main types of financial aid. There are some misunderstandings about financial aid out there, and now that I've been at ICANN almost 9 months, I will say that this is true. This is very true. One of the misunderstandings is that financial aid is meant to cover all the costs of college. And occasionally you hear of somebody who says once they did the FAFSA, they got everything covered. That's what they say. You never know for sure if that's true. But it isn't meant to cover all the costs, and it rarely does. So if you think of the word aid, to aid someone is to help them. So it's actually meant to help pay for college, but it's not going to cover everything. So if you hear somebody say that, probably that's not going to happen. The other misunderstanding is that I would say many people feel that the only real type of financial aid is the gift aid, the grants and the scholarships. They don't feel like the loans and the work study are part of the financial aid, but they are. The student loans are geared towards students. There's some things about them we'll talk about that make them a little better than a lot of the private loans. And then of course work study is definitely, because that is actually the student earning money to help either with spending money or to help pay for college. So again, gift aid and the self-help aid are both considered financial aid. So we're going to talk about applying for financial aid. How do you apply for financial aid? You do it through doing this document called the FAFSA. And many years ago, it was a paper application. It was very long and cumbersome. Now it's online, which scares some people, but it's actually a lot easier than the paper copy was many years ago. The FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And so 2 words I'd like you to remember are free. You shouldn't have to pay anybody to do that. You shouldn't have to pay to apply for financial aid. It's free. And application. It doesn't actually award you the money. It's just the application where you apply for the money, and then the colleges actually award the money to the students. So that's what it stands for. It's required for some state aid. So when you do the FAFSA, you may qualify for some state aid as well, and you wouldn't qualify for that state aid if you didn't do the FAFSA. And also, many of the colleges require it for their aid, for their scholarships and grants. So it is important, not just for the federal aid, but for institutional and state aid. And overall, you fill out this document with your financial information, and then it's just kind of a snapshot of your family's situation, your family's financial situation. And so that's just the basic information about the FAFSA. Should you bother with the FAFSA? I have a lot of people who come into my office in the last several months, and they kind of come in begrudgingly and they say, I don't really know why I have to do this. We're not going to qualify for anything but the loans. I don't know why we're doing this. Or they'll call and say, should we bother with it? We always say at ICANN, yes, you should bother with it, because number one, it's required, like I said before, not just for the federal aid, but for some of the state aid, and also some of the college scholarships and grants. Some of the colleges actually require it as well. Also, from doing the FAFSA, you qualify for the student loan. And many times people will say, well, I don't want my kids taking out any loans. They're not going to do that. And I respect that completely. But I would also say that a lot of times we don't know what's going to happen in our lives. And just because when you're filling this out, say the fall of your student's senior year, and they're not going to need the loan, doesn't mean that by the time that school year happens, something might have changed in your family and they might need the loan. So you don't have to accept the loan, but it does make that federal Stafford loan possible by doing the FAFSA. And then again, if you really didn't want to do it, you would definitely want to check with the colleges your student's going to see if they require it, because you don't want to cause your student to not be eligible for some institutional aid just because you don't really want to have to fill it out. This is what the website looks like. If you choose to do it yourself, you would go to fafsa.gov. When I type it in, I actually type in fafsa.ed.gov. But the key is you want to make sure that you use gov, G-O-V. There are a couple of websites out there might be more than that now, but there have always been a website or two where people accidentally get on the site and they think they're on this site and they do the FAFSA on this site, and then when they get to the end of it, it charges them $80 or something like that to actually submit the FAFSA. And remember, free application it is, you should not have to pay. But the problem is once they get to the end of it, they've already entered all their information. So be sure, if you don't remember anything else, be sure to remember that gov is the right web address, and I know that's in the booklet there too. After you enter all the information that it asks for, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, it'll process in 3 to 5 days, and then it'll be sent to whatever colleges that you put on there. And you can list up to 10 colleges on the FAFSA. If you need to list more than 10, once it processes, you can log back on and put in some different ones, because once it processes, it'll be sent to those colleges. But you can't put more than 10 on at once. It has skip logic. If you're not familiar with that, that means depending on how you answer the questions, it might skip you on to another question. So you might get different questions than you do, and you might get a few different questions than she does, because it will skip over anything you don't need, and that's really a good part of the form. And also there are quite a few helpful hints all the way through. Running along the side, there's a box that has hints with every question, and then even clicking on the questions will sometimes give you some more information about where to find the information that you're putting in. So it's probably about as user-friendly as it could be, I would say. It can still be a little daunting at times, but they've improved it a lot over the years, I would say. The thing also to remember about the FAFSA is that it uses prior year taxes. So that's a change in the last couple of years. It was probably just 2 years ago that we were using just prior year taxes, but people didn't always have them done. And so now they've bumped up the date, so you can start the FAFSA starting October 1st of the senior year. But to bump that date up, they had to go to prior year taxes. So juniors who will be graduating in 2019, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. So you'd start school the fall of 2019. So prior, you'll be using 2017 taxes for that first FAFSA that you do. And then every year it'll be what we call prior year. So that's something people get a little confused if they had older kids that went to college when it was not prior. So as I said, it's available beginning October 1st. You can't even get to it. You won't be able to get to the 1920 FAFSA until October 1st, so you can't get on and fill it out. Whoops, I don't like to do that. I talk with my hands all the time, and then I do things like that. You can't get on and then fill it out and then submit it later. It just doesn't work that way. And you can't, what's the other thing sometimes people think that it's due by October 1st. They have to have it done. But no, you can't even get to it until October 1st. So just remember that. And then the other thing that's very important is each school has a priority date. And what that means is it's not a deadline. You can do it later than the priority date. But the priority date is when the college would like it to guarantee that you'd be eligible for all the possible financial aid that your student could get. So if you submit it after that priority date, it'd be possible that maybe some of the money would run out, and then maybe your student wouldn't be eligible for some of it. So the priority dates are important. There's a list of them in the booklet. There's a couple I know that are outdated. What happens is this October 1st date hasn't been around very long, so some of the colleges are still kind of working on when they really want that priority date to be. So when this went to press, for instance, last July, University of Iowa changed their priority date after it went to press. And so they're the earliest date that we had this last year, and their priority date was November 15th. So anybody who wanted to go to University of Iowa needed to submit that FAFSA between October 1st and November 15th. But that was the earliest one in Iowa that we had. And then Iowa State was the next one with December 1st. And then the rest of them tend to be in the second semester. But most of the time, or many times, probably most of the time, students probably will apply to more than one college, so you'll have various priority dates for your student. You want to submit the FAFSA with whatever that earliest priority date is. So if they were going to apply to University of Iowa, but they had 3 or 4 or 5 other schools they were applying to, you'd still want to get that submitted by November 15th because you want to hit that earliest priority date. So it is important. People miss them sometimes, but it is important to try. Let's see if I got that battery in right. Oh, I did. Okay, so an important part of the FAFSA is called the Federal Student Aid ID. This is the legal signature for the FAFSA because it's done online. You use the student FSA ID, it's a username and password. You use the student one to log on because it's the student's FAFSA. And then it electronically signs for the student. The parent, one parent has to have one as well. And it's used, there's a place where you can pull the tax information in directly from the IRS. So you use that parent FSA ID to pull in that tax information. And then it also will sign for the parent at the end. Each student has to have their own FSA ID, but if a parent has multiple children going to college, or eventually will have multiple children going to college, the parent can use the same FSA ID for every child. And you only need one. So if you have two parents in the family, only one of them needs this FSA ID. Even once in a while, there's a parent who's already going to college themselves, so they have an FSA ID as a student themselves, and that's fine. They still use that same FSA ID. You can only have one. It's tied to your Social Security number. So you wouldn't be able to create a new one for yourself if you had one, even if you tried. So you just have to kind of realize that too.
Do they let you find that?
Yes, yes, we'll talk about that in just a minute. But it can be easy or it can be tricky. So you create this at fsaid.ed.gov, and this form, this is not rocket science, but it is a form that we use at ICANN. It describes creating the FSA ID somewhat, and then it's a place for you to write it down, because you can try to retrieve it. And like I said, sometimes it retrieves really easily. It's no big deal at all. You reset the password, bing, you're done in 5 minutes. Other times, like a lady I had today, we ended up having to call the Federal Student Aid ID site because she didn't use the email that she'd used a couple of years ago, and she couldn't get to it. And now she's waiting for an email to come to her, and in the end, the whole process is going to take probably 7 to 10 days before she can actually get it retrieved and password reset and use it again. So it is really important to try to hang on to it. If you don't like our form, it's fine. You can write it however you want, but keep it someplace where you can find it and use it every year. And especially as the parent one, if you have multiple children, like I said, you can't create another one. So it's important to write it down somewhere. I will say that some of these things I already talked about, but you do want to make sure and double check for typos, misspellings, entering wrong numbers. You want to really make sure all the information on an FSA ID is accurate. The name, the date of birth, the Social Security number has to match your Social Security card. That's for student and parent both. You will use it every year. So again, the student will use it however long they're in school, and that could grow into grad school. If the student goes into grad school, they would use that same FSA ID for that as well, and the parent would use it over and over again. One student, or the student and one parent, and then there's a place, you don't know what we're talking about exactly because you haven't been in there probably, but there's a place where you can enter your cell phone number and then verify it with a code, and then that's the easiest way to retrieve it if you do lose it. So verify your phone number, and then you can verify your email, and your email is probably the second easiest way to retrieve it. So when they get to those parts where they want to verify that, by giving you this code, follow the directions and do that, and it will be easy. You can set these up whenever. You can't do your FAFSA until October 1st of that senior year, but if you wanted to set these up before that, you can. Just make sure, again, you write them down and keep them in a safe place. So it is an important part of the process. And it can be the most frustrating part of the process, I will say that, from my 9 months of experience here. So what should you bring if you're coming to us for an appointment, or have ready if you're going to do your own FAFSA? The other handout that has ICANN on it is another really handy one, so I would keep that someplace where you can find it too. You'll find that it pretty much asks for the same information from the student as it does the parents. Now, there's some skip logic, again, in the form, so some of these things are not going to apply to a student coming right out of high school for the most part. It'll skip some of those questions for you as you answer them. But for the most part, for that FSA ID, for student and parent, you'll need the Social Security number, and of course, date of birth, and the name as it is on the Social Security card. The student, it asks for student driver's license number, but it's not required. It's the one thing that's asked for, but it's not necessarily required. It will ask for, you'll have to use your federal and state tax returns. So again, for you guys, your first year of college, it'll be 2017, and that's for student and parents. And then W-2s, you need to have your W-2s handy. Any other kind of income that you would have earned, student or parents, in 2017. Untaxed income in 2017, business farm records if that applies to you. So all that information is about 2017 for your student when they start college. But then you're going to get to some questions that are as of today, and as of today questions would be things about how much money student and parents each have in the bank. So your cash savings and checking accounts, whatever your balance is as of that day, and then investments, and we'll have a slide about which investments you have to include, but that would be their value as of today also. So some of it's prior information, some of it's current financial information. If a student was not a U.S. citizen, they would need their alien registration number. It's going to ask marital status, which for most of the kids graduating from high school is going to be single, but for parents, there are various marital statuses. There could be, for marriage, a widow, separation, divorce, it's going to ask what month and year that happened, so you'll need to have that information. Child support paid or received in 2017 is also asked for, and then of course you need the FSA ID. And then the student would need to know what colleges and universities they want the information sent to. And again, you can put 10 on there at a time. So that's your basic. If you had all that stuff ready and you came to me or you tried it yourself, you'd have pretty much everything you needed right there. So it looks like a long list, but you just gathered up and it's all there for you. On the back side, there are some tips about the dependent or independency of the student. Most of the time, students coming out of high school and most of the time throughout their undergrad career, they are dependent on parent information. Parents sometimes question that because sometimes parents aren't helping them, and some parents feel like the child turned 18, they're on their own, and you know that's a parent philosophy. Not going to argue that, but the way the FAFSA is set up by our federal government, the parents are considered part of the process, and so it does ask for parent information. So almost always the students are going to be dependent on the parents. However, if any of these questions are a yes, if any of those questions come a yes, there comes that skip logic and it turns the student into an independent student, and it'll again process the questions a little bit differently for that. But if you look at the questions, you can see that most of the time coming out of high school, and for those first 4 years anyway, it's going to be no to all those questions because the date of birth, you know, all of our juniors and seniors are going to be younger than that. Most students aren't married. They're not going to be working on a graduate degree. There's an armed forces question, so if that was yes, then the student would become independent, but most of the time that's no. Does the student have children or dependents they're going to be supporting during the school year? Usually that's going to be no. At any time since the student turned 13, were the parents deceased, were they in foster care, dependent or to the court? That does happen once in a while, so that student would be independent, but most of the time that's no. There's a question about legal guardianship. And occasionally I have had students come in and a grandparent is a legal guardian, so that would flip it into an independent student as well. The majority of the time that's a no. And then there's a homelessness question. So again, one yes will turn the student into independent, but otherwise for the most part the student is dependent on parent information. So who's considered a parent? Those questions come up too. We do get questions about this. If the biological parents are together and married, you know, it's pretty simple to figure out. If the parent's widowed or single, then of course just that parent information would go in. But where it gets a little bit tricky is sometimes when there's been a divorce or separation or something like that, and trying to decide which parent's information should go into the FAFSA. And as far as what the government says for the FAFSA, the first thing that you're supposed to check is which parent did the student live with more in the last 12 months. Okay? And if whichever student they live with more, that's the parent information that's supposed to go in there. Now, a lot of times there's 50-50 custody, so people aren't really feeling like they can figure that out. Even though there's 365 days most years, so technically somebody had to have them probably one more day, it still can be tough to figure out. So if you can't decide on that, then the second condition would be the parent who provided more financial support in the last 12 months. So, or then once they get out of the house into college, it's a little harder, so then you can look at the most recent year that they actually got support from the parents. So the first condition would be whichever parent the student lived with more in the last 12 months. Can't figure that out, then it goes to whichever parent supported them financially more in the last 12 months. And that's who you're supposed to put in there. If that parent that you're using has remarried, you do have to put the step-parent information in. So just realize that, whether they're helping to pay for college or not. And if the parent was widowed and they've remarried, the step-parent would also go in as well. So that's how you determine whose information you use. So investments, when we talk about entering investments, you enter investments as they are today. These are things you do include. So if you have real estate, not the home you live in, but you had rental properties that you rented out, or you had a vacation home or some other type of real estate that you don't live in, you do have to include that. Trust funds, I'm not going to read all of them. CDs, stocks, bonds, those can be common for some families. The educational savings plans, like your 529s, those do have to be reported. Most of the time those go in the parent income because the parents are the holders of those in the students' names. If you do have multiple 529s for more than one student, you do have to report all of them, even though you're just filing for that one student. So just realize that. We can help with that, and there is explanation on the FAFSA about this as well. Investments you don't include, again, you don't include the home you live in. I get a lot of people that think they do. That would be real estate, but it's not the home you live in. That's your home. Don't have to consider that an investment. You don't include any of your life insurance values, and then you don't include anything that's directly related to your retirement. So no IRAs, retirement is in that. No Roth IRAs, retirement is in that. No 401ks, 401bs, so none of the pensions. Annuities, those are for retirement. So nothing that's designated retirement has to be reported, but other types of investments do. So that's important. Sometimes there are questions about businesses, investment farms, when you have to include that as an asset. If you own and control over half the business and have fewer than 100 full-time employees, then you don't have to consider that part of your assets. In my situation, the last 9 months, that's most of the time. Most of the time, that's been the situation. They haven't had to. And again, we get quite a few questions about that. And then sometimes with farms, we have questions too. If you live on and operate the farm, then you don't have to include that as an asset. If it's an investment farm, so it's not the family farm that you own and work and live on, then you are supposed to include the value. But any of these kinds of values would be like your business or your farm or other real estate, let's say. It would be, what the market value is of that asset minus any debt that you have on it, and then that would be what you have to report. So it does give some leeway there if you have some of these things but you owe money on them. So if you don't get that right now, we can talk about it later, or you can always call with questions. So basically, again, the FAFSA is the application. You enter in your tax information for student and parents. You enter in bank accounts and investments, any assets that you have. When you get to the end of it, there'll be a place where you can click for a summary, and it is a really good idea to look that summary over just to make sure that you haven't made any glaring errors. And it's just called a student aid summary at first. If you have any errors, you can go back and correct them real quick before you submit it. And then you'll hit submit. It takes 3 to 5 days to process. And again, then it'll be sent to the colleges who actually award the money to you. Now, once it's been processed, if you decide that you found something you think you made a mistake on, once it's processed, you can get back on it by logging on with the student FSA ID, and there's a place where you click make corrections, and you can go in and change schools or make the correction, whatever it is that you need to make. It's not a big deal, but you just can't get to it while it's processing, so you have to wait. If you need to make a correction, once it's been submitted, you have to wait till it processes. Also, once it processes, you will have access to this student aid report. Some people call it a SAR. And basically, that's just your official summary of all the information that you put in there. So it's good to know where that is, too. And all that's available right once you log right into that FAFSA. You'll see it. Sometimes families get verified. I've seen people panic. I've heard people panic on the phone because when they get this email that says they're getting verified, you automatically think, oh, what did I do wrong? Doesn't mean you did anything wrong, or it doesn't mean whoever did it for you did anything wrong. But sometimes you're just randomly selected. Colleges are required to verify at least 1/3 of their students. Sometimes they verify more than that. Sometimes they verify everybody. My middle son went to University of Iowa, and we got verified every single year because at least at that time, University of Iowa was verifying every single family. So somebody there was going through our taxes that we had to send them and making sure we didn't have any mistakes, which I think at a school the size of University of Iowa would just be crazy trying to verify every kid, but they did. So it's a little easier now because at that time we couldn't use that data retrieval tool. If you use that data retrieval tool to pull in your taxes, you are less likely to get verified. And if you do get verified, they're probably not going to ask you for this tax transcript because they're going to assume that the information came in correctly from the IRS. So try to use that. If you do it yourself, try to use that for the parent taxes. And if your student did taxes, try to use it for that because then you won't have to probably order that transcript. If for some reason you can't use the data retrieval tool, and there are reasons why that happens, or something else happens that they want you to get a tax transcript, you can go to the irs.gov site. You just order the tax transcript online and have it mailed to you, and then you would submit it to the college. And then also, if they verify you, they probably are going to have a form for you to fill out. Again, just read your directions, do what it says. You're probably going to feel like, I just put this information into the FAFSA because it feels like that. But again, you're verifying it to make sure it was accurate. Sometimes it asks for a little more detail about the information, and it can be frustrating, but you need to do it as soon as you can just so you don't cause the process to delay so that your student doesn't have a delay in getting their financial aid. So don't panic if it happens. We've had people come in and we've helped them with the verification process. We've had people just call us because they just have questions about it. Basically read whatever they send you and don't panic. You can always call the college financial aid office too, because if they would know specifically, about their college, what they're looking for, and they're very helpful people. Whoops, the wrong one there. Okay, how is financial aid calculated? Well, it's a big, long document with lots of numbers. There's a big, long formula, actually. But the basic premise of financial aid is that parents have the primary responsibility. So whether you agree with that or not, that's how it's set up. Parents have the primary responsibility for paying for the college education. Students also have some responsibility. So they ask for both sets of information. It's just the parent information weighs heavier. And then families are evaluated in their present condition, and pretty much all families are evaluated the same way. It doesn't allow for any individual circumstances, the FAFSA doesn't. It's pretty generic in that sense, okay? So again, whether you agree with it or not, that's the basic premise. And then once that information is put in, you will get a number that's called the Expected Family Contribution, EFC, and I have seen this number asked for on scholarship applications sometimes. So it will be important when you get your FAFSA done that you find that number. It's there on the last page, and it's on that student aid report that I talked about. It's a number that could range from 0 for very low income family to, I've seen 6 digits, but that's not real common. Most of the time it'd be more like probably 5 digits. But it could be an average, probably an average EFC that I see might be 8 to 12,000 or something like that. People look at that and they automatically think, I'm going to have to pay $12,000 for college. I can't pay $12,000 for college. It's not necessarily what you're going to have to pay for college, but it is what we call an index or a measure that the college uses to decide if you're actually eligible for financial need-based aid. Okay? So to get that Pell Grant that I talked about earlier, that EFC would have to be somewhere between 0 would be a full Pell Grant, up to, I believe it's a little over 5,000. And those people with an EFC just a little over 5,000 would get just a little part of that Pell Grant, okay? Anybody with an EFC over that would not qualify for a Pell Grant. That Iowa tuition grant that I talked about for an Iowa private school, for several years the cutoff has been 13,000 for that particular grant. So anybody with 13,000 and below should be eligible for that Iowa tuition grant if they're going to an Iowa private school. But if your EFC was over that, you wouldn't be, kind of thing. So it's a number they use to determine your eligibility for financial need, but it's not necessarily what you're going to have to pay. However, the number doesn't change. So no matter if you're going to an expensive school or a cheaper school, that EFC, that expected family contribution, is the same regardless of where you're going. If you really like numbers, and I'm going to be honest, I haven't done this, you can go to this website, ifap.ed.gov, and you can search for the EFC formula, and it would, a coworker told me it's like a 30-some page document that describes how every single part of the information you put in goes in to create that EFC. Personally, I have other things to do with my time than read 30-some pages on that, but there are people who really think that stuff's interesting, so good for them if they, or good for you if you are interested in that kind of thing. You are welcome to look that up. So, as I said, FAFSA itself is fairly generic, but sometimes people have special circumstances. You're using taxes that are prior years, so they're pretty much 2 years old, by the time you're using them. Family situations can change, things happen to families, so sometimes you might not feel that the information you put into that FAFSA is very accurate. Or maybe you had a one-time big chunk of money inheritance or something that you had to put in that year, or you had a bunch of medical bills that came up that aren't reflected on that FAFSA, but you are still paying off all these medical bills. You had a job change, all of a sudden somebody got laid off, or they ended up having to take a job with fewer hours and they're getting paid less. There are a lot of things that happen to families that make their circumstance different than what it looks like from that FAFSA. So if that would be your situation at any time that you have a child in college, you can file for special circumstances, but you have to do it directly with the college. There's no way to account for that on the FAFSA. It has to be directly with the college. And probably the best thing to do is just call the college, kind of talk to them about it. They can tell you how to go about the filing for the special circumstances, but normally it involves some kind of a form that you fill out and then documentation for your situation. They're not going to just take your word for it, of course. They're going to need some proof about it. But do realize that, because things happen to people, and they get frustrated because we're putting that stuff in their FAFSA and they're like, this really isn't the way our family finances are right now. And then I always say, well, don't forget, you can always apply for special circumstances to the college. And then it's up to the college to decide whether or not they feel that, whatever that circumstance is will make a difference in your EFC toward your financial need. So do remember special circumstances. I think it's a very important thing that I really didn't know about or understand until I started working for ICANN, to be honest. There is an Iowa financial aid application, so if your student's applying to any of the Iowa schools, it would be a good idea to do this. The easiest way to do it is right at the very end of the FAFSA. Once you've submitted it, there's a link that says Start State Application, or something like that. I'm pretty sure that's what it says. You click there, some of the information goes right in, and you put in a little bit more information, and then you submit it, and then your student would be eligible for Iowa aid. If you forget to do that, and sometimes you get to the end and you're tired of doing everything, you might not even see that link, you can still go to iowacollegeaid.gov and apply. It's nothing like the FAFSA. It's a very simple little application. It's just easier to do it right at the end because some of that information transfers right in. But you can definitely go to that site. If you go to the site, the link you're going to click on, it looks pretty much like that. Iowa application, apply. Click on it, put in the information. If your student's only interested in out-of-state schools, it won't do any good because these are only grants and such for Iowa schools. But I would say take the time. It doesn't take that long to do. And if they don't qualify for anything, so be it, but at least you tried. I'd hate for you to miss out on that. But these are some of the different priorities and different things that come through students. I know in my particular school, we were a rural school, so we had a lot of kids in 4-H, showed animals and different things. So sometimes we had people that qualified for that state fair scholarship because they were active participants in the Iowa State Fair. If they hadn't done that Iowa application, they wouldn't have been eligible for that. So it's worth looking at. There are also state of Iowa aid grants usually that you are eligible for just for doing the FAFSA. I already mentioned the tuition grant. Those next two, the Iowa Vocational Technical Grant and the KIBI grant, those are both for community colleges. So remember, Iowa tuition grants just for Iowa private colleges. The next two are just for Iowa community colleges. But doing the FAFSA will make your student eligible to be considered for those. So you don't have to do anything more. There's some loan forgiveness programs, and there is an All Iowa Opportunity Scholarship, but it's part of that Iowa application. And it's to kind of help some lower income students or students that maybe had some alternative education or were in programs like TRIO, Upward Bound, Talent Search, things like that. But another way to give some money to some students who might need that. So there are, again, Iowa things available from doing the FAFSA. So eventually, the student has to apply to the college and be accepted, and the FAFSA has to be submitted, but once those two things have been accomplished, eventually every college starts working on financial aid awards, and that's how they actually award the financial aid to the student. Most of that's done online these days, and to know exactly how each college does it, you'd probably have to ask the college directly, but most of it's done online these days. So basically the college will tell you their cost of attendance. The cost of attendance is made up of two different types of costs. Your direct costs you can't do much about. Tuition is what it is, fees are what they are, tuition or room and board are what they are. You can't go in and barter, for less money. It's just whatever it is. The only way you can affect direct costs would be if you lived where you could maybe live at home and commute, you could obviously save some room and board or something. But you can't go barter those down. They're just what they are. They're direct. Indirect costs you do have a little control over. That's a place where they may give you some estimates, but you might be able to spend a little less money. So books would be one way. If you go to the bookstore and buy new books, that's where you're going to spend the most money. If you find ways to find used books, or you can rent books sometimes. My youngest son, who's just graduating from college this spring, has done some renting of books through Chegg. I'd never heard of Chegg until he told me about Chegg. Of course, you know about Amazon, probably lots of books on Amazon. But there are ways you can save money. So, and again, an indirect cost is a way you might not have to spend quite as much as they say. Transportation, if you choose not to take a car to college, you wouldn't have to pay parking. You're not going to have as much cost for gas and things like that, but some students need that car or want that car. Maybe you want them to have that car, but it is a place where you could maybe not spend quite as much. And then your miscellaneous and personal expenses, that's a place where you can really cut down. If you can live a low maintenance lifestyle while you're in college, you can save a lot of money. Probably eat on campus, because if you're paying for room and board, you might as well take advantage of those meals. They're a lot better than they were when I was in college. There's a lot more variety. Kids would probably not agree with that. My own kids would probably not agree with that. But they didn't see what meals were like when I went to college. So again, live a low maintenance lifestyle and you can save some money there. So direct costs, they're pretty much set, can't do anything about them. Indirect costs, you can try to save some money on those, and that would be something to think about. So basically, in that financial aid award, they'll show you the cost of attendance. They're also going to award their institutional aid. So this would be grants and scholarships that the college is going to award you based on either financial need, and that comes from the FAFSA, or based on your talents and merits, which again would be grades, music, sports, all the different activities and talents that a student might have. So you see what they have offered you. Now to get some of those scholarships, you may have to apply. Some colleges have automatic scholarships, and so when you apply and they see your ACT and your GPA, and if you guys have class rank here?
Yep.
Okay, if you have class rank, then you might automatically qualify for a certain amount of money, and a lot of times they can tell you that right up front. But there often are scholarships that you can apply for as well, especially as an incoming freshman. So make sure you know how each college does that. If they have some extra ones you can apply for, make sure you know where to apply for those. You can look on their websites. I have found that some college websites are very user-friendly, and some of them aren't. So sometimes they're easy to find, sometimes you have to dig for them, but you can always ask the admissions office, and you can always ask financial aid about scholarship applications. But don't miss their deadlines, because their college deadlines for scholarships could be ahead of that priority date that we talked about. So they could have a priority date of March 1st, but maybe their scholarship deadline is December 1st. So you don't want to miss those scholarship deadlines if you have to have an application in. But there's no magic formula. You just kind of have to look college by college, because they all have a little bit different way of doing things. Again, admissions people and financial aid offices are wonderful resources for that. So here's kind of an example of comparing. So I would say, especially if you're applying to a school that is fairly selective or quite expensive on the sticker price, you need to have a backup plan, because most of us can't sit down and write a check for college, especially an expensive college. So you need to apply to, you can apply to that dream school, but you also have to have a couple of other backup schools that you could be happy with and might be a little bit more affordable and will have the programs you're interested in. And then you may want to have one that you know is affordable no matter what, just to catch you in case you can't afford it. But basically, I like this comparison for a couple reasons. This would be two different colleges. They both have their direct costs, and this is what we call sticker price. Hardly anybody pays sticker price for college, but we call it the sticker price, kind of like with the cars. Most people don't pay sticker price, but so you have your direct costs, and you can see college A's sticker price is quite a bit higher than college B. So if you flat out looked at that, you'd think, oh man, there's no way I can go to college A because I can't afford $45,000 in direct costs. But when you look at the scholarships and grants, their institutional aid that they were awarded, you can see that college A came up with quite a bit of money there for that student. College B had a small scholarship for them, but by the time you take in that institutional aid, you can see the cost has become very similar, $20,000, $18,000. When you're talking college, $2,000 isn't very much difference. So that can happen, especially if the student is a good student. Maybe you have a little bit of financial need in your family. You'd be surprised what kind of scholarships and grants could be out there for them. So, general rule of thumb, just because a college is expensive, and for instance, an Iowa private college would be an expensive college in Iowa, they might have a sticker price like that, $45,000. Don't write that off just because of the cost, because until you apply and do the FAFSA and see what they can award you, you don't know. That might become a very affordable school. My three boys, one went to a private college, one went to the University of Iowa, and the other started at a private college and then ended up going to Wayne State across the river. And each one of them, the Wayne State probably ended up the cheapest of all, just because Wayne State's and I'm not plugging Wayne State, I'm just saying it was very affordable for him. But between the privates and the states, for my boys, it became just about the same, really, because of the different institutional kinds of aid that they could get through scholarships. And it wasn't need-based aid, it was all more merit-based aid. So if your student really likes a private college, even though the sticker price is high, don't be afraid of it. Have a backup plan in case it still becomes something you can't afford. But don't be afraid of that sticker price. Just wait and see what you can get for financial aid. So in the end, regardless of which college you really want to go to, you would have to figure out how you're going to pay that remaining cost for whichever college you're hoping to go to. And so part of that would be, besides those college scholarships we talked about, the next best bet is your private scholarships. Those would be scholarships given by people and organizations, maybe locally, sometimes they're county-wide, sometimes they could be state. There are some national ones. Those are a little harder to get because they're national, but they're given by private organizations, individual citizens, and your very best source for that is your school counselor, because people that give private scholarships send that information to the school counselor in every school in probably the country, but for sure in Iowa. So we're going to let your counselor talk a little bit about how you will know about those private scholarships here at Synergy.
It's actually a good time. We have our seniors right now are in the process of applying for our local scholarships. So the way we have it run, they get 2 weeks here in the spring semester. They were, applications are out on the 9th, we're out on the 9th, and now they're here due on the 23rd. Those are just local, different through the school, through like Pheasants Forever, the Sportsman's Club, just tons of organizations throughout the community that have scholarships to award for specific students. Some are, you have to go to a 2-year or a 4-year, 2-year versus a 4-year school. Some are for an ag field. Some are for athletes, who did 2 varsity sports their senior year. But last year we handed over out $100,000 in local scholarships at our senior awards day in May. So huge amount of money. It's a really simple process. We make it as easy as possible for you. You kind of just have mainly one application to fill out, and then just a couple other ones. But it's a really simple process for those local scholarships. And then I have my scholarship binder in my office that has some of those statewide or national ones as well that students are always welcome to go look at in those binders. All those scholarships, they're not going to be available until a student's senior year. So there's not too much you can do right now in regards to those 2 options, but there are options that you can look at for your junior year as well. Any questions?
Take the time to do those. In most schools, from my experience and the people I talk to, not everybody takes the time to do those
for
things.
sure not.
So
This year's seniors were doing good.
That's
I'm
correct.
actually impressed this year, but
Sometimes the pool
definitely
of
take
applicants
advantage
isn't
of
as
it.
big as you think,
Mhm.
so you have a better chance than you sometimes think.
And I'll say this, we kind of always like to see the student, if 99.9% of the time, if you apply for a scholarship, we make sure you get one of those
something.
local scholarships. So I don't want you to think, oh, Susie Q is going to get all the scholarships because she's got the highest ACT score and is smart at, No, we make sure that we, get those awarded to every student if they apply. So, and since I've been here, every student has gotten one. So I guess that's been 1 year. But from what Jamie has told me in the past,
Everybody that applies has got
she
something.
said that students will get it. So, now I'm annoyed.
And those can make a huge difference in that remaining cost. Even if it's just for 1 year, they're not renewable, and you
Mhm.
only get that scholarship for that 1 year, it'll take care of that remaining cost, and maybe you don't have to have any loan, or maybe you don't have to use all of your savings, for that first year, and that will help you down the line too. So spend the time on those. I will also say that sometimes employers or religious organizations may have scholarships that they don't go through the school with. Hy-Vee has scholarships, for instance, and they don't necessarily let the school know about those. 100 years ago, when I was in high school, my dad worked for a phone company, way back. We had several phone companies, not cell phone, real phones, and there was actually a scholarship for children of employees. So I applied for that, and I actually got it. I was so excited that I got that, but we wouldn't have known about that because they just did that within their own organization. Religious, I know the church we used to go to in Mapleton gave a scholarship, didn't go through the school, so it's worth checking with churches. In Anthem, which was part of our school district, the Catholic Daughters had a scholarship that didn't go through the school. I've heard of Knights of Columbus scholarships, for instance, so worth checking into it. Worst answer is no. You ask, do you guys have a scholarship? No, we don't. Okay, well, it didn't hurt anything to ask. But that can be something else to look for. And then you can search online. It can be really time consuming, and any of these sites are legitimate sites, but you can use any of those sites or just go to our website. We have some of those links in there, and search for them there. But every scholarship that you get, again, can help you not have to take out loan or maybe not have to dip into that savings quite as early.
We always use the kind of example. Okay, even if it's a $100 scholarship,
Absolutely.
you're going to spend maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe filling out an application. How many hours are you going to have to work at a part-time job in order to make $100? Okay, so that's covering a big. That could be a textbook. It could be, a week worth of food. You got to kind of put it in that kind of.
It matters when you're trying to figure out how to pay that semester's worth of tuition. It comes in handy, all of it does. So eventually, if you don't have enough savings, your scholarships aren't going to be quite enough, you may need the loan. Anybody who does the FAFSA will qualify for the Stafford loan. And there are two different types of the Stafford student loan. There's the subsidized and the unsubsidized. The main difference is the subsidized is need-based, so you have to have some financial need according to the college. The college is the one that decides that. And because it's subsidized, if you get that, you want to choose that one over the unsubsidized because the government's paying the interest on that loan while you're in college. In the unsubsidized, the interest is building up regardless. Now, either way, subsidized or unsubsidized, you don't have to start paying them back until you've been out of school for 6 months. So it doesn't matter on that end of it, but the interest matters between subsidized and un. So if you're offered some subsidized and some un, and you don't need all of it, take the subsidized first, because at least then the interest isn't building up, and that really matters. That's the interest rate for this current school year, 4.45. To our knowledge, that would be the best interest rate out there for student loans. Obviously, if you know somebody else to borrow money from, you can get a better rate. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. But as far as our information, that would probably be the best interest rate out there for student loans. These are your limits. So each year, every student that does the FAFSA can be eligible for $5,500 their freshman year, $6,500 their sophomore year, $7,500 junior and senior year each. But you'll notice that the maximum subsidized, the part where the government's paying the interest, the maximum is not the whole thing. So no matter what your financial need, you can't get the whole loan subsidized. You will just get a portion of it. And some people won't get any. Some people will just get the unsubsidized offered. But anybody can get the loan. If you make millions of dollars, but you want your child to understand how loans work and have some responsibility, they can still get the student loan. It'll be unsubsidized probably if you make $1 million, but they can do that. So realize that that's out there for you to help. Many times if there's still unmet need after all that, the college may offer the parent a Parent Plus loan. And I think sometimes parents just take that because they don't know what else to do. We would say if you're thinking about having to borrow more money, do some looking into some private loans because there are private loan companies out there. The 4 we know about for sure that do student loans would be Sallie Mae, Iowa Student Loan, Wells Fargo, and Discover. And the differences are the Stafford student loan is all the students. It's in their name, there's no credit check, the parents don't co-sign, it's all the students. The Parent Plus loan is all parent. So I had a guy in my office not too long ago, there was a split family. The dad had taken out a Parent Plus loan to help pay, but he was planning on the student paying it back. But the Plus loan's in the dad's name. So if the student doesn't pay it back, the dad's going to be the one responsible for it. So I kind of felt bad about that for him because I'm not sure if he really understood that or not when he actually took it out. So I'm not saying don't do this, I'm just saying before you would accept the Parent Plus loan, maybe look at some other possibilities just to make sure you're making the best choice, because sometimes you can find an interest rate better than that 7%, and this origination fee is a little higher than average too, we feel like. But if you go to those private loan companies, basically the student would take out the loan, unless the parent wanted to, and if the student takes out the loan, the parent would still co-sign, and the interest rate would be based on the parent's credit score. So that's why it can really fluctuate depending on your credit score. So maybe in the end, the Parent Plus loan would be the better bet, could turn out that way. But don't just accept that because it's there. Do some research if you are thinking about another loan, and check the private ones just in case you can do better. Loans get a bad name. I used to have students that said, I am not taking out a loan no matter what, no matter what, no matter what. And I would say, it's good to be cautious about loans, but don't limit yourself because of those stories you hear. Because what happens is people overborrow, and then they have a hard time paying them back. So don't borrow to live high on the hog. Borrow because you have to have it to invest in whatever career you're wanting to do. And the bottom line is, they say try not to borrow more than what you will make your first year out of college. And you have to think if you borrow $5,500 that first year, you're probably still going to have to borrow every year, because it seems like if you borrow, you end up borrowing more as the years go on, it seems like. So you have to think how many years you're going to be in college and how much total loan that's going to be, and then try not to let that total get past whatever your starting salary could be. And you can easily find starting salaries on the internet these days. They're very easy to find. So if you stick with that, you'll probably be okay. But if you borrow $80,000 and you have to pay about $800 a month on that student loan, and you start as an elementary teacher in Iowa at $35,000 a year, that $800 payment on that $80,000 loan is going to be tough to do. So you just have to really be cautious. So don't not borrow, just borrow carefully and know your limits. In the end, you'll have to look at, the institutional aid, scholarships, grants, the loans, see if you have enough in your savings to pay for the year. Make sure as you're looking at those award letters, you see whether they're showing you one semester or the whole year, because you have to think if they're showing you one semester, whatever it is, if it's a loan or whatever, you have to take it times 2. And sometimes that can be a little tricky to figure out. I'm not sure that colleges are trying to be tricky, but sometimes they are a little tricky. So make sure you know what the whole year is going to cost. There is a possibility of payment plans. My kid's dad and I, basically that's how we helped our kids. They had to be responsible for a certain amount. They had some scholarships that helped pay, and then we did payment plans because we couldn't necessarily, well, Wayne State was a little easier, but with the others definitely, we could not just write a big check at the beginning of every semester. We just couldn't do it. But we could make some payments to help them. So that's how we chose to do it. And every college my kids went to, that involved 4 different colleges, every one did it just a little differently, but all of them had some kind of a payment program. One of them even, you could split it out through the whole year. Even though they weren't in school for 12 months, we could pay over 12 months. Others, we had to have it paid within maybe 3 months of each semester. So worth looking into, and the earlier you can get signed up for a payment plan, if that would work for you, you might get to spread it out over a little bit more time. But once you look at all those things and see if you can afford it, you have to decide whatever college you can afford or you're going to make work. You have to make a decision eventually. Sometimes families get to the point where they just can't figure out a way to afford it without somebody mortgaging the house or going into debt way more than they want to. You shouldn't have to mortgage your house. You shouldn't have to dip into your retirement. So sometimes you just might have to go to that school that hopefully you put on there that you knew you could afford. And don't feel badly about that, because what I've noticed is we as parents, we don't like to dash our kids' dreams, and they have this dream school, but sometimes that dream school can be really pricey. Sometimes the answer might be starting at a community college or someplace a little cheaper for this first year or 2. And then you don't have to borrow any money that first year or 2. And then maybe you can afford to go to a more expensive college to finish your degree. But you just have to decide as a family, how you want to do that and make that decision together. So in the end, you'll accept the financial aid award. If you do take out a loan, the student goes online and the college sends you the link. But you go online and you accept the award. If the student's going to take a loan, they have to do, it's called entrance counseling, basically get a video that kind of explains how loans work, which is really a good idea. Excuse me. And then the student actually signs for the student loan online. You can talk to financial aid office if you're interested in the payment plan kind of thing. But basically, you make your decision, you accept it, and then you start in. So there's a lot of places for help. Your counselor has lots of information. We're here to help you. We have that 877 number that's on my card. There's a direct line to my Sioux City office. I can't answer when I'm in Orange City because I don't really have an ICANN phone, but I can answer when I'm in Sioux City. So all those people are helpful. Your college, again, your college admission and financial aid offices can be very helpful. Iowa College Student Aid Commission has a lot of information. So there's a lot of help out there. It can feel very overwhelming, especially if it's your first time. But I guarantee you the second year it'll seem a little easier. And if you have more children or you have a 3rd and 4th year, each year you do this whole process, it becomes a lot easier. I had a mom just last night, I was at Kingsley Pearson, and a mom came up afterwards and she said, I know I'm going to want help this first year. I'm just stressing out about it already. And I talked to my friend about it, and she's on like her 4th kid, and she said, oh, it's a breeze. You can get through it. I know you can. And she said, I know this first year I'm going to be stressed, but I think by my 4th kid I'll be okay too. So, the more you do it, the easier it becomes, definitely. Do realize that besides appointments in our office where we would do the FAFSA for you, we don't, but Iowa has this event called FAFSA Ready Iowa. Every year between October and March, there are events in all these different cities where people will do your FAFSA for free. And again, when we do FAFSAs for people, all of our services are for free. So remember that as a possibility. Sometimes college financial aid offices will help you too, but they kind of have turned some of that stuff over to us since we're doing them now. If you're still interested in colleges, ICANN supports this college fair every year, and it's on September 23rd this next fall. So you're welcome to go to Des Moines, and we'll have 130 different reps there. This is our website. If you did want to schedule your own appointment, you go to ican6c.org, click on Schedule Now, and you can see what I have open in Orange City would be closest for you, obviously. If you wanted to come to Sioux City, that would be fine too, but you can find Orange City on there, and you can schedule your own appointment. Otherwise, you can call, like I said, and I'd be glad to answer questions or help you with the FAFSA, or we help students look at we help families look at the financial aid awards sometimes, because again, sometimes they're a little confusing when you look at them. Lots of different types of services that you can do with us, and we never charge a cent. And then we lost about half our crowd, but I'm supposed to ask you to do this evaluation.
I'll do it.
I know where they went, but I'm not gonna get their evaluations
They're
now.
at least right there. They're just right there.
Well, I'm not gonna go out there and pound them for it. But if you have a few minutes, if you would do this evaluation, we do, again, we rely on grants and donations and partners and sponsors and all kinds of things. And we do report out all this information that we gather. Plus on the back, if you want, you don't have to, but you can sign up the student or the parent, or both if you want. And if you want email reminders about financial aid deadlines and different things, we enter in your information and you would receive those via email. If you don't want them, it's fine, no big deal. But we do offer that service. And other than that, I want to thank you for coming. I will stick around and answer questions individually, or if you have something you don't mind in asking for everybody, I'll do that too.
I have
Yes.
a question. Like my younger child, his accounts that he don't know about are all under my name with him as beneficiary.
Mhm.
Should I just get those all into his name so I don't have to claim them?
Well, if they're in his name, he would still have to claim them. They're like, what,
No,
CDs
no, no.
or 529s?
My
or-
youngest child, not my one going to college.
Oh, are they 529s?
There's, he's got
I
a
don't know.
savings and a checking and a money market.
I don't know, I really can't answer that, because technically if they're his accounts, whether they're in your name or his name, most of the time, the thing is, even if they're in the child's name, the parent's name's on them when they're checking
Right,
accounts
right.
and things like that, and there's still, but those particular kinds of accounts are considered the child's account. So
So do I have to claim
ethically,
it for the oldest one?
I probably shouldn't answer that, because, you know, technically if it's his money, he should, it should be on there.
The 14-year-old. Not my 17, 18-year-old.
You're talking about so for in the future?
So,
Well, that's a choice
If
you
you have
to
4
make.
children, and
Well, you don't count their bank accounts, no, I didn't mean that. It's
Right.
529s, you have to count everybody.
okay, but
Okay,
if he has a savings and checking, which I've put money into
Right.
over the years,
right.
and it goes to my 14-year-old,
Okay, so you're talking about 14-year-old accounts,
but it has my name on it with his.
right.
Do I have to put that on?
Not for the other child. No, that would be 529 plans, like those.
Right, no,
education-
it's not a
no.
529.
Bank
it's a
accounts
checking
is
and
just,
savings.
bank accounts, so your cash savings and checking, the question that it asks is, what is the balance of that for the parents? So those would be the parents' accounts, because usually those are not parent accounts, it's just your name's on there till they're,
Right, so if my 14-year-old has $10,000.
yeah, that's not
in
gonna
the
count on anybody's FAFSA. Yeah.
Even though my name is on it.
Right, because he can
With
get
his.
to it, right? It's his account. Usually checking accounts and savings accounts are with money
I'm
markets
gonna
or
have to
anything.
check with that, because I have access to all of them. They don't.
Right. And I always did with my kids too, but they were really their accounts. It's just, that
Right.
I think they make you put the parent name on until they're, I don't know,
Right.
until they're 18.
Until they're 18.
Something like that.
So, okay.
So yeah, that one, I'm sorry. What I was talking about was more, they do make you report all the 529s that you have.
Right.
Okay, yeah, don't worry about that. Now I understand what you're saying, I'm sorry.
Okay. I don't want him to work all summer and have to put it on his brother's account.
No, sorry. But don't put it in the brother's account, because then you will.
Yeah, exactly.
Accidentally.
But we can put his brother's in his account.
Well, that, again, I'm
I
not
know,
gonna go
la, la,
there,
la, I know.
but it's one of those things, la, 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 la. Good question, though. Good to clarify that. And I will, if anybody wants to ask it, you don't want to ask it in front of everybody, I'll be glad to stick around as long as you have questions. And once you're done, I will pack up.
Thank you so much for joining us. Your expertise is
Yes.
very much appreciated.
Yeah, I'll take the yellow forms, you can leave them on the chair, and I'll pick them up either way, it's fine.